This is the most consumed cereal in the world, and an essential food for Costa Ricans. It cannot be missing because it is part of their culture. This time we were visiting Canas, in the province of Guanacaste, where we observed a large presence of rice crops, so we decided to look for someone who from his experience, will tell us about the management, care and harvesting. I have been growing rice since 1998. Since this year we started to grow rice, at times a little more, at other times a little less. We have been working for several years, extracting rice seeds, producing rice seed, at other times only commercial ones, but I have been growing rice for 20 years. Well, it is a very gratifying experience. I have always had good parts. I have never had problems with losses. Maybe that the losses due to the irrigation system, always irrigation system, I have done very well, but this has always been very gratifying, at the time of knowing that it is also producing something that goes to the plate of many people. Rice is a cereal, it is a graminea. It has been cultivated for many years in Costa Rica. It is a crop that has a lot of manual work. It has a duration of 4 months. In the lowland areas of Costa Rica, rice cultivation has had the greatest expansion, because the conditions are favorable for the development of this activity, and it is also a source of employment for many people. In this part of Guanacaste, rice and sugar cane are the two most important crops and pastures are the third, but rice is almost the most important crop. Here there are two ways of producing rice in Guanacaste: dry land rice, which does not have irrigation, and irrigated rice. We are in the irrigation district, which thanks to God we have irrigation all year round. We cultivate 2 or 3 times a year, and in those areas that only have or are at risk, we only cultivate once a year. The rice varieties have been developed according to the soils of the different producing areas. Fernando has worked mostly with Palmer 18 and Lazaros. In order to have a rice crop that is good with irrigation, it has to be a fine type of soil, of fine texture, so that the water does not leave and is retained. The humidity has to be the number 60, with temperatures depending on the phenological part of the crop. But it can be around 28 degrees. The soil has to have a basic pH, a pH of 6.5. We buy certified seeds, seeds that are free of red rice, of any other type of weeds. We make a preparation in January. We do it in dry, mechanized. We make 2 passes of rasha, 1 of rufa. We sow with a seeder and we pass a compactor. We make a system of taipa, with irrigation. We do everything directed. We sow a variety that is directed to be sokas, that there are other shoots after the harvest. The variety that we use the most is called Palmer 18. It is a variety that has given us very good shoots. This crop is Palmer 18, this is a soka. After the harvest there is a shoot, and this variety has given us better yields in the sokas. At the end of the day, when people have their harvest, they do not prepare for a second harvest. The plant reaches its end or its harvest is very senile. What we do is that we put a little more nitrogen, reaching flowering stages, so that the plant is not so senile when it harvests, and it is with a good green. And when we make the chapia, it is seen in a fast regrowth. Guided by the results of soil analysis, phosphorus was applied to this crop during planting, followed by nitrogen and potassium, in addition to some minor elements. Nitrogen was increased a little more, so that the plant could be used for the second regrowth. Potassium was also increased a little more so that the plant would have more texture. This crop in particular, when it was harvested, there was rain. The soil was very wet when the machine entered to harvest. When preparing for the soca, the tracks of the machine's caterpillars were very marked in the lot. This lowered the yield by 20%, if it could have been done dry, the harvest would not have left those marks, increases of 20% in future production. In this rice crop, we generally make controls from small, but we make samplings. When it is small at first, the pest that most damages it is the worm. The spodopter, that pest depending on if it is summer sometimes comes with great intensity, and if you have to be the applications, when it is between 0 to 15 days is very hard that pest. After the spodoptera, we have bride of rice, which makes it pierces the stem and that makes a vector for other pests to enter. The sogata is also a pest that we have been using to reduce the populations with applications of biologicals. Then when the ear is in the ear, when the rice is in bloom, there is a pest that is quite common, which is the ear bug, which is applied in this way. Depending on the season, there are quite a few populations. We have to apply it, so that it does not damage the stain on the grain. This lot is a seed lot. She is pulling weeds from this terrace, which is what we have left. When it is seed, it has to be cleaned. What is the duck rice, which carries water, and the invader? The rice that sticks out in a rice that is called chancho. It is called that way because it is black. The red rice that cannot go when it is used for seed, because it has to go intact. If we see a bully, which looks like a broom, it should not be removed, because of the little hair that the rice carries. When it is commercial, it means that the rice is not cleaned, because in the seeds if it has to be cleaner, because the seed is grabbed or sold and transported elsewhere. The first thing is that here there is irrigation. We have the capacity to apply a sheet of water to the whole area, and that makes a seal. We first apply chemicals, so that the populations are lowered and do not emerge. Then a small application of herbicides, post-emergent, and then a sheet of water is applied. So there are very few weed populations that come after the sheet of water. A control is made, as if to say in little donkeys, to make a total control of the weed population. The efficient management of all agronomic practices, together with an excellent harvest, will make it possible to obtain a grain of high industrial quality and a good product for human consumption. The water is removed a week before so that the soil becomes a little hard for the harvest. The harvest is done with caterpillars, the machine with caterpillars, and the harvest is done 8 days after the water is removed, The problem is that sometimes in these 8 days there are downpours and the downpours affect the soil. This is what is happening right now. The ground is a little muddy with the rain that happened yesterday. This harvest that we are now in the second harvest of the January planting, which was done first, it was planted in January, it was harvested in May, the regrowth came. The people come behind with the motorized harvester, the cuts are made, the regrowth comes and the third harvest would come out in December. The harvester is adapted to the back with a fan so that it turns around and begins to pull the weeds well distributed, homogeneously, so that when the harvester comes back, the weeds will be well distributed, the harvest will come out in December. This helps us to ensure that the uniformity on the ground, the moles, is uniform, so that the regrowth is a very good one. This was a good harvest. Fernando tells us that 3.5 tons of rice were obtained. Here we have the facility that the industries receive the seed at the same price, a price generated by law. You give it to one rice grower, you give it to another. There is no difference in price and everyone will receive the same price. In this case, this crop we were harvesting, it is a crop that is for seedbed, so it has a little more added value and commercially if it were commercial. We also have 3 agribusinesses or 3 industries that buy from us. After a few, 2 or 3 years in this cycle of 2 or 3 harvests a year, depending on how the crop gets dirty, the weeds, depending on how the rice gets sick at that moment, the land is turned over and the crop is changed to rotate, the best way we have found in these crops of rotations to the canals. From here to the future, what we hope is that there will be new varieties to achieve with yields, varieties that help us with weeds. In the case of systems that help with weeds, we hope that they also take us into account at the government level, as a crop, that the price does not lower us, that the industry treats us a little better, and what also has a brightness of being climate change with respect to where they do not have irrigation. I feel very proud to know that I have brought a lot of rice to many families for many years. I have seen trucks and trucks of rice pass by, going to industries, going to families. I feel proud that my children are also following in my footsteps by studying agronomy, proud that they are also following with the cultivation of rice. I feel very good about that.